everybody and welcome to another video of mine. In this video I will be showing you guys how I did this portrait right here of David Bowie. In real time this took me about 30 hours to do, but I've shortened down to a video that will be about 20 minutes long where I go through it step by step how I did it. I've only been using watercolors for this painting except some small parts where I've been using another medium that's called Gouache, but we'll get to it later on in the video and explain what Gouache is and which parts I've been using it for. Hopefully you guys will like this one, so let's watch.
It has this green blue eyes. I add the green color first, then add the blue later on. The white spots in his pupils, I have actually used some masking fluid just to keep the parts white. Then I start adding the eye makeup around his eyes, which is this pinkish red. And I start to moving up a bit on his forehead and his tinings. I don't know what it's called in English. Video is actually going a little bit too fast for me, so it's hard for me to keep up, but I'll try to do my best to match whatever I'm doing. As I said earlier, I'm using a different medium in this one at some small part that's called gouache. I'm unsure of the pronouncing of the word, but hopefully it's understandable to you. I can write it down in the video description so you guys can copy it and search for it on Google if you want. Gouache is not that different from watercolor, it's water-based. The difference is that gouache is a bit more, the pigments is a bit more rough and deeper coverage. That's the difference. And I always use permanent white gouache for the white parts of the painting, like in the eyes and some highlighting. Otherwise I just use the watercolor white. But to use this gouache, it's a great tips for you guys if you want to have good coverage on the white parts of your paintings. And here I'm going on doing a bit of the makeup, the red around his eyes, like flash, I guess you can say it is. Adding all the colors to that. Sorry for all this mobile phone. It's me like changing the podcasts I'm listening to and stuff like that. For this painting I actually most of the time listened to No Sleep podcast, which is my favorite podcast. And after doing a bit on its cheekbones here, adding a bit of shadow and lightning and light, I go and start off with his hair, which is the part I hate the most about every painting I do. I hate to paint hair actually. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm not good at it. I guess you don't like things you are not good at. As you can see, I start out in the left corner and work my way to the right. This is something I always do when I paint, since I prefer to have the painting laying down on the table. And this is because I don't want to lay my arm in wet color and smudge it out. And here I'm starting out with the second eye. Start with the black parts. It's pretty important, I think, to get a good coverage with the black, so you can go back a lot of times to add more black. This is something I always do when I paint. I always do layers upon layers. This is the first layer, then I will come back and add another layer and a third layer and probably a fourth layer also. This is because it's hard to get a good coverage when you're working with watercolors, and because I like to add a bit more detail and everything later on. So what you see me do now is the first layer of the painting. Most of you guys have probably seen the original picture, original photo of David Bowie here. And I don't know if you noticed, but he has this real deer caught in headlights look in his eyes and a very bright flash upon him, which I actually think I managed to do pretty good in this painting actually. I'm surprised that I managed to do these flashing parts very good. Ironic that it's such a dark film part right now, but it will get better, as you can see here. This is actually one of the my favorite parts about painting, doing the eyes, because I like doing small things with details. I actually always use very small brushes. I don't know if you guys know centimeters and millimeters, but the brushes I use are most of the time 0.3 millimeters, which is very small. And I think you get a good detail feel when you use small brushes. I actually always use a smaller brush even for the bigger parts of the painting. Even if I'm doing the cheeks, I use a small brush because I think it's, I don't know, you have the best control. Now I'm getting on with the nose. This is the hardest part on this painting, I think. He has a very modest nose. It's kind of good looking, beautiful nose. And those are the hardest and the most boring to paint, since there are no rough edges or... Sorry, why am I leaving the camera? I have no idea. Well, so there I am back, sorry. Since there are no rough edges or anything buckly on the nose to paint, it's hard to do it. This soft, beautiful noses are always the hardest one for me to do. And here I'm starting out with the cheek and adding the contour to the cheek line, the jawline. And I'm doing a bit of the hair again. I always tend to go back to the hair. I do this, I go back, do the hair, do something fun, go back to the hair, because I don't want to do... If I do the hair at once, it will look shitty, because I hate doing it. That's why I like go back and do some funnier parts, then go back and do the hair again. In a way, try to make sure the hair is in a good quality. Here I'm starting out with the jawline and going in to start with the lips. Lips is also a part which I think is pretty hard to do. It's hard for me to make them look real. It's something that I'm working on and getting better at each time I try, but it's not my biggest talent. I keep on working layers, so this is the first layer of the lips, and I tend to go back a lot of times to add parts to the lips and shadows, which is really important to remember and not forget is the teeth in the mouth, which adds a lot of character to his face, and in almost every portrait you do where you can see the teeth are very important to remember to do the shadow and the right color on and so on. So now I'm moving on to do the neck and shoulders. In the original picture it's a very huge difference in color. His face is this pinkish, and his neck and shoulders are these yellow, greenish, bluish. That's why it's you can see the big difference in color. Now I'm starting out with layer number 2. As you can see, I go back to places I've already been painting to add a bit more. Probably almost every time I go back to add more of the darkened colors. I am pretty afraid when I use dark. That's why I tend to go back and add more in the second layer, as you can see. As I said, I'm a bit scared of using dark colors. I'd rather be safe than sorry. That's why you can see me go back to this part and the cheeks like I don't know 20 times in this painting, because also you get a bit fooled painting in watercolors, because it's always this darkened color when it's wet, but as soon as it dries it's tend to lighten up very much, as you can see in the painting. That's also why I guess you can say a bit tricked. And I'm going back to the eyes and add some more details. I don't really know what to say right now. When you're doing eyes, I guess it's important to remember to do the shadow around the globe, I mean the white parts in the corners of the eye, to make it feel realistic. And actually I tend to exaggerate these shadows more in paintings than the original pictures. As I said before, this original picture of him is taken with a very bright flash, which make him look very classy, I guess, in the makeup and the face. and I actually think I managed to get these white spots pretty good. I used as I said before, the Gouache color with very little water in it. That's why its coverage is very good upon the red. And now I'm trying to go in and do the hair more realistic with a small brush, sorry. The reason I say pencil is because in Swedish the word for brush is pencil. That's why I get it messed up in my head when I'm talking about it. Adding shadows in the hair and all the separate hairs with this small brush. I think this part is, as I said, very boring. Not very boring, but definitely not my favorite part. Now I start with the second layer upon the eye and add a bit more darken around the globe and go down to the nose bridge. As I said before, I get a bit tricked by the wet colors, and when it dries it tends to lighten up. That's why I'm go back so many times. Sorry for you guys having to see me fibble with a phone all the time. I'll try to think of that in my next video, cut those parts away. Adding a bit more shadow to the face. I actually noticed too late that I've done shadows too light, and I should have gone a bit more deeper with those shadows, but I am correcting this later on in the painting. One thing that's fun with this picture is that he has no eyebrows. His eyebrows are shaved off, which was pretty hard to get, because you can see some kind of shadow of the brow, but there's no hairs in it, which was hard to manage to make it look good in the painting, but I think it turned out all right in the end. It's hard for me to keep up with this speed. Next time I guess I will do some parts slower. As you can see in the phone, I have a picture up of him all the time when I paint, so I'm not just doing it from my mind. I have a picture that I look at him every time. The nose I had a very much problem with. The shading of the nose, as I said, he has this very soft, good looking nose, and it was hard to get it to look correct, but in the end I think I managed to get it look quite good. That's why it's so good also, since the shadowing got a little bit too rough at some points. That's why gouache is so good to have, because it's covering up those darkened parts and making them light again. As you can see on top of the lip, I think it's called Cupid's bow. He has these two bright white stripes, I guess you can say. That's because he has this serious contouring makeup in the picture, which I absolutely had to have in my portrait. I couldn't just skip them. But it's hard to make it look natural since he has this white makeup in the picture. It was hard to get it to look makeup-y, I guess, in the portrait, and not just some mistake from my part. Adding more to the cheekbones. As I said, this is the part where I should have gone a lot harder on from the beginning. This is going to dry up, so it's going to lighten up fairly much, as you already can see. Ears also a part of the painting, which I tend to forget. What's important is that you have to pay attention to all the parts of a painting, even though the ears are boring to do compared to some other parts. Those are important to do for the feel of the whole painting in the end, so don't forget about those small parts. Adding more hair, which is important to also adding the last hair to the side of his head. He has a very good hockeyfrilla, it's called in Swedish, real 80s haircut. Going on with the neck. This is a part of the painting where I tend to get a little bit sloppy, since I think those parts also are boring. I work on it very hard to not be too sloppy. So I'm starting to be done with this painting. I used to start adding the last little parts, a bit more to the hair, go back and do a bit there and there, adding a bit more shadow, going back into the last details of the eyes, nose. Now I think I'm starting to get a feel of the right nose for him. I'm not very happy with it. I'm not super pleased, we can say, with the end result of the nose, but I think it's okay. That's what I think about the nose. The parts of the painting that I'm most satisfied with are, I guess, some parts of the makeup and the eyes. But I did my best with this one. So now I'm going in and doing the very last few things, adding a bit more shadow to the neck, and to his cheeks. But here it's basically done, and I will show you a picture of it that will come soon, as soon as the video is over.
Thank you so much for watching the video. Let me know what you think about it in the commentary below. Like it if you liked it, dislike if you didn't like, and please subscribe. And hopefully I will see you guys in the future in another video. Thank you!